Welcome to PPI Conversations, an opportunity to connect with leading edge thinkers and leaders and discuss today's pressing topics in the engineering and construction industry with your host, PPI Executive Director Gary Fischer. We at PPI address the root cause of major capital project cost and schedule overruns through the research and dissemination of project production management and its foundation of operations science. Enjoy the conversation.
Well, today we're really pleased to be sitting here with Bob Snyder with Binsky, who has some really interesting experiences to share with us. So Bob, why don't you start by introducing yourself, telling our audience a little bit about yourself and your background.
Thanks, Garrett. It's really great to be here. Thank you for this opportunity. So Binsky and Snyder is about an 80-year-old mechanical contractor. I happen to be fourth generation. We do somewhere around $250 million worth of revenue and hire about 400 plumbers and pipe fitters. That's our main trade. Mm-hmm. We do a lot of work in the industrial sector, pharmaceutical and stuff for that. So yeah, we've been doing it for quite a long time.
Oh, that's really interesting work. So when did you get started? And how did you get started?
I think when you grow up in a family business like I did, you start from the day you come out of the womb. So I bet you I started working when I was probably 5 years old for Willie in the shop, and I was sorting fittings, and you'd go to work with Dad on Saturdays because he put a couple extra hours in, and that's how you learn the business. So it's sort of the hard way to learn, but you really learn the work early.
And you learn hands-on.
I grew up in a family where we were very hands-on. We always had boats and cars, and it was always wake up Saturday morning and let's go sweep the garage or let's work. So the work itself was always ingrained really in us as kids.
So you grew up learning how to do things, if you will, a traditional way.
Correct. I would say yes.
Yeah. So how did you discover project production management? What was the impetus for that?
Well, my journey's been pretty interesting growing up in a family business. So it really is only the last 5 or 7 years that I ended up taking it over and becoming the CEO and president of the company and really the primary owner. Like most companies, you evolve really based on old traditional tools and things like that. So, and really what I was finding was that we actually just started losing money on projects. Or not losing money, but you weren't making the profits. And I couldn't figure out why our projects would not be making the money that we think they could make. Mm-hmm. The project managers, my thought was always they had responsibility for the profit and loss on the projects, and they couldn't predict the earnings from even like month to month, and it just became this real weird situation with profitability, and it's like a puzzle I couldn't quite figure out.
Well, now that's interesting because you're the company that's actually doing the work, the sub to the sub to the sub or whatever, and you're actually doing the work, and you're having trouble with predictability.
I'm struggling with it, and when I actually was in one of the project reviews, which we have on a monthly basis, and I go to some of them, and I was sitting there, and I was listening. And I started really keying in on the questions, and the questions were really about the work. Mm-hmm. And they were asking a project manager, how long do you think it's going to take to do this? Or how is this piped? And I realized they didn't know the answers. And what I all of a sudden realized is how can I have the person in charge of the P&L when they don't know the work, they don't know the engineering, because these young folks are not brought up in a work environment anymore. They're brought up in an administrative environment. Mm. So if you don't know the work, you obviously can't, be in charge of production. So that really created this quandary.
So what do you mean by administrative environment?
It was about, the construction managers, which we mostly work for. Yeah. Just the sheer number of emails they get every day asking them for RFIs and, when is your bill going to be in, and really information about the projects, and it's just a constant beating on all of those things. None of them really are about producing faster, better, less time, etc.
Right. Wow.
Well, they're all important because they're
right. You got to do that.
You got to do all that stuff, right? A lot of them, they are responsible for a lot of the information that gets put into the production system, and retrieving that information. They're responsible for the client, but as far as actually producing, they really have just gotten away from the work, and it's very difficult.
So you became frustrated with your lack of predictability, and you started looking for answers. And how did you find your way to production management?
So a friend of mine introduced me to Todd, and we were talking about, really it was more about software and maybe fabrication. And I started hearing about it a little bit, and I just started thinking a little more about production and then manufacturing, which I've always been really interested in engineering and manufacturing. I'm an engineer. I just didn't have the science behind it. So when I started hearing, it took a little bit, and I'm like, whoa, wait a minute, now this could be a problem. One of the things he said to me was, he's like, administration, you need to either automate or eliminate. And because computers do a lot of that stuff. And what you need to do is create a production system and really focus on the work itself. And the work is either knowledge work or actual physical work. Right. So really just started learning and going on this journey. It was probably 2.5 years ago now. And it's a journey, because it is really, it's not that it's super complicated. It's just so different from anything you're ever taught growing up in the construction industry.
Yeah, or practiced.
Or practice, for sure.
Yeah, for sure. So now you've had some run time, or you've had some absorb time, and you're getting an opportunity to really use this on an ongoing project that you're responsible for. So tell us about this project.
So the project is it's a pharmaceutical project. It's major Fortune 100 pharmaceutical company. And it is their largest investment. It's north of $1 billion. And the timeline is really 2 years. And it is very, very schedule intensive. So everything is about, how do we bring the schedule up? What do we do to do that? It also happens to be, we call it design assist, but we're engaged. The engineering is not finished, so we're actually engaged with the engineering firm, who happens to also be the construction firm that we're working for, in helping them with the design. So we're actually doing a lot of the BIM work, where you're actually drawing the project, coordinating it kind of live with the engineer. So there's a lot of really variability in the design itself, but we're working with them. So I guess really what that says is we have a lot of influence over the product design in this particular case, and they're listening to us. So we're really integral to the engineering piece.
Yeah. So how did your work change the product?
So so we were awarded the underground piece of the project.
Right.
It's a pretty specialized underground system. Pharmaceutical. They're really worried about containment of the drainage. So these happen to be a stainless steel welded system. It's really complex, and it's something like $5 million worth of work.
It's all dual wall kind of.
All double wall, welded, and the question right out of the bat from the construction manager was, let's do a planning session. Well, how many days you got? And we had a number of like 130 days, 140 days to do this work in a traditional fashion, which was, you dig the ditch, you put the bedding in, you bring the pipe, you can prefabricate it, and you throw it in, you connect it together.
Right.
So that's really the way the job was designed. And the journey of production management and this whole thing, I was actively engaged in this particular project, and I just started thinking, how do I bring the time up? Because they were like 130 days, how do we do that? So I just started thinking about the time, and really now in terms of the levers, right? When you start to learn this stuff, you create a whole new vernacular.
Right.
And I'm like, man, maybe we can really pull on the product design and the process design and really influence this. So we started studying this, and I came up with the idea, why don't we build the entire system on racks and do not dig the hole, have the whole site be at a certain level, and we'll construct the entire thing, re-engineer the way we do it. We've never done this before, and build modules. And by doing that, we ran a PSO working with SPS.
So PSO, describe that a little bit.
Projects, it's a production system optimization.
Right.
It's the first step in the design of a production system. And you're really into, you do a map, you map the project, just like you would map a production system. And what's mapping, it's basically process mapping. We're going to make the weld, we're going to make the joint, we're going to install this. You have all those process steps, and you try to simulate the system using PSO,
Right.
and then actually study really through the lens of operation science and all the formulas you learn during the science, and all of a sudden you're looking at things like what's the optimum WIP, right? What's the optimum work in process? In this case, how many modules do we want delivered to the site on a certain day? How many do you want on the site at any one time?
Mm-hmm.
And you start to figure out that design where, normally you might ship like tons of them. It's like, no, we only want 3.
Right.
And when there's 2, deliver 1. When there's 1, deliver 2. Don't deliver 3, 3, 3, because you're going to back up in WIP and WIP is cycle time. So you just realize that you start looking at it through this just completely different lens of
And
thinking.
the model came all the way back through
And the
the
model-
shop fabrication.
Yeah, right. So all the way back from engineering, shop fabrication, and then installation. So we started running optimization studies and working with the team, and we ended up being able to bring the optimization into like 50 days of field
From
time,
140
130 or 140
down to 50.
down to 50
Wow.
through fabrication. Now, that required us to redesign, do the product design, the project
Sure.
engineering, all that stuff, so that and we had to start fabrication 4 months prior to delivering the first module.
Right.
And yeah, it was amazing that we could get to that, and we used really the PSO, the project system, the production system optimization. We also then put it in control using project production control, or production control. So, and we ran it pure. This was really the first project that we were really able to run this thing pure, and it just gave us the ability to see what was going on and predict what was going on. We knew that we were going to have a problem on module 58, that the field was going to crash into the fabrication, and 2 months earlier with the system optimization, we knew that engineering was a little slow, but we didn't believe it. But guess what happened? We crashed into it at module 52.
Oh,
So it's like, oh my gosh, it actually does work, this stuff. So that's the amazing part of this project. I think it's been a struggle, but we're making believers out of our own people. I think that's the magic of this thing now for Binsky. Now we have a real internal case study that says, hey, wait a minute, this works. The other thing is the owner really played with the schedule. The steel one was going faster, so they wanted us to start earlier. So we had to figure out how the heck we could start earlier, because that's the variability. They were playing with the time. They were throwing all things at us. And unfortunately, because they changed that late in the game, it was really difficult to deal with it and the variability. But because we were in control, because we understood the system, we were able to make some changes, able to increase capacity, cost more money, but we are able to actually bring this thing in.
So the owner saw things happening faster in the field than they thought, and they said they want to capitalize on that. So they put the pedal down even stronger.
It's start earlier.
Yeah.
And what you learn is starting earlier doesn't mean you finish earlier.
Right.
And that concept is foreign to the administrative construction world. They have no idea what that even means. And what's funny, when you're in the business, you know what that means because you feel it, you just don't understand the science behind it. And that's what revealed itself to us. So I actually think we could have done it in 30 days. If we ran the system. All we would have had to do was start a month earlier on
And
fabrication.
believed that the engineering was going to be a problem.
Yeah. And
Isn't that
believed it.
interesting?
Yeah, it's and that what does that mean? I mean, going from 130 to, if we get on the 35 days,
That's huge.
and that actually does mean your production rate is double.
Yeah.
For the project. So really this project is, I'm hoping, gets everyone excited in Binsky to implement this.
Yeah.
Because some of the nuances in our business, we're really implementing this as a platform to Binsky and Snyder going forward. It's not just one project, it's all our projects
So you're taking it across the company.
across the company, and really, creating one giant production system with little mini ones that talk and integrate together.
Flow through
That
it
flow
to
through.
particular clients.
Yeah, it's all different clients.
So you're making some interesting people changes to make that happen. Tell us about that.
Well, it's been a journey. It's very, very difficult to implement these philosophies because everybody in the industry is so ingrained in this administrative way of building. They don't know any different. And even 30, low mid 30 project managers, when you try to teach this to them, it's just really difficult. They don't understand, or they're afraid, or they're so. What we've really come down to is let's build a whole new group of folks, kind of next gen builders. We call it the next gen builder program, and actually bring them in and actually train them from the ground up, so they only understand production thinking.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's and we've seen some amazing things where the kind of the spin up time for someone in our industry coming out of engineering school, it's a long time to learn the work, or at least enough of the work to actually be able to talk to it and manage it.
Yeah.
What we're finding is when you take someone out of school, you put them in a role we call a project production coordinator. They're actually, they're running the software, but we're asking them to be focused 100% on production, using the science. And what happens is, and they're talking to the foreman every day, what happens in with like 1 year, they learn the work. And it's amazing. I mean, the spin-up time is miraculous. I think I can build project managers who understand the work within 1 or 2 years, compared to taking years and years. So and they're excited about it. It's exciting to learn all the parts and the pieces and the stuff. So we're really changing everything around this idea of how to become production focused.
So they're running the production control meetings, managing the software for the foreman, but they're in that daily conversation about, okay, what are you going to do tomorrow? What didn't get done? Why didn't it get done? And they're learning. That is really interesting.
I mean, we're talking, if we say work in the software, but the reality of it is, it's all about commitment and reliability.
Sure.
And what you find is even just studying the what you get every day, right? We call them red X's. Red X's they're the things that didn't get done that you said you were going to get done, right?
Yeah, right.
And then we also study the things they did that they didn't say they were going to do. And what you end up finding is a lot of the guys get everything done, and then they also get completed. They get completed tasks, which means they're buffering the rates. So we have to crank the rates down. I mean, I look at it. I like red X's. I don't want people to get things done. The other problem we have is they don't get things done, but then they get a whole lot of uncompleted work done. So now you're saying, well, wait a minute, you're not using this as a planning tool anymore. You're just using it as a statusing tool, and you're just sandbagging us. So it's really interesting on the daily level when you start looking at the metrics, then the reasons, right? Why did you get a red X? I don't have the engineering data. I don't have this. I don't have that. Why did you have that? And you just record all that information. But you actually what's going on in your projects almost daily. It's amazing.
It's pretty amazing, isn't it?
Yeah. And I sit there and I just get the daily production reports on every single project. So I just get those every day. My evenings ends with me going through those. And I'll pick up the phone and be like, "Hey, what's going on with all these red X's? I mean, something's matter. We got to tweak the engineering on this." And you can almost run your entire business just studying these reports. It's incredible.
So it allows you to help solve the right problems.
Yeah.
So what are you seeing? Of course, you have interaction with other trades. How is this helping you or not helping you in that interaction or that interplay with the trades around you?
Well,
or are you just completely isolated?
We're doing it ourselves. What we do is we call them commitments. So what we do is we're trying to figure out how to do it, first of all. But right now we're creating commitment boxes. We're doing two things. One, we're putting our own commitments in and reporting that to the owner or to the construction manager.
Right.
Because they don't understand this at all. And it's very painful to try to talk to it because they can't get it because it's hard. So what we end up doing is we give them a report every week that maybe there's 10 milestones that they're interested in, and then you can see the deltas off of those on a weekly basis. We also put in constraints. We call them commitment constraints. So for instance, if I've got to put something on the wall, well, I need the wall, but I'm not building the wall. So we'll have a project constraint that is assigned to the construction manager. So you get 20 of these things that we're committing to, which is transparency, and it's dangerous a little bit. This is, for my people, hate it because they're like, wait a minute, we're going to be transparent. We're going to get killed here, Bob. They're going to kill us. But we also put these, I'd say I want 1/3 or less, or 1/4 of the commitments, because we don't want to be saying we can't do anything unless you do your job.
Yeah.
But they may see that if I don't have the wall, and then we actually tie them together. So we say, if the wall is not there, we can't make our commitment.
Right.
And as the wall slips, the commitment slips.
Yeah.
And you can see it in deltas.
Yeah.
And that's been really helpful. But no, we're not really working with the other trades on this stuff. That's kind of how we're trying to integrate it, but it's really difficult. I mean, the scheduling out there now is last planner, pull planning. I mean, all these buzzwords where I don't think anybody actually does them the way they were originally meant to be done.
Yeah.
Right. But like communicating what we're doing with them is almost impossible. Yeah. But it's, I mean, this Merck project has 2,500 tasks on a $5 million job. Mm-hmm. Things like make a weld. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And we're all linking them together, and to show them that information, it just blows their minds. They can't wrap their heads around it.
So how are you doing on those commitments to the CM or the owner?
I think we're doing pretty good on them. I mean, we get beat up now and then, mm-hmm. but the reality is, if the thing's slipping, if it's your fault, then you just got to fix it. You can't hide from it. There's no hiding from this. That's the hard part, right? Mm-hmm. The work's the work. It's either done or not done. Mm-hmm. There's no like, well, it's done but not. It's just what it is.
Partial credit.
It's real. Count. So I mean, really, you have to really teach your people to. We're better off being completely transparent. Mm-hmm. It feels painful, but transparency is not a one-way street. So if we're completely transparent, they will have no choice, and then they really can't say anything. So the projects we're doing, these reports, they almost don't bother us anymore because we're just telling them what we're doing.
So they're developing some trust in you.
They develop some trust.
That transparency creates trust, which helps keep them off your back and getting unwanted help. Yeah,
this is such a journey.
Yeah,
in so many ways, but it's exciting. I think our vision. I spent a lot of time actually with Todd and folks, and we talked a lot about what do you want, Bob, out of this thing, mm-hmm. and kind of the whole vision turned into we want to change the way the world builds, mm-hmm. and that's our vision now. So my company vision is. Binsky, we're going to change the way the world builds.
That's fantastic.
And that's how we want to address this. And
at the PPI, we're really excited about that.
Yeah, that's super great. So everything we do is really focused on that. And really, this has truly been my mission. And I finally kind of found it. I found the tribe. I found the key. Mm-hmm. I just haven't quite jiggled the lock enough to get it undone. But
isn't it wonderful to know you've got the key finally in your hand to unlock the potential of what's possible?
It is completely a different way of thinking. I mean, it's almost a different way of existing, because production, everything we make is a production system. Whether you go to the mall or you go to the Starbucks coffee place, you're like, how did they make the coffee?
Yeah.
And you're studying, and I've had some really, really nice opportunities to share some of this stuff with the group at PPI and everybody. And it's been a super lot of fun, but it is challenging.
So where do you see yourself in 5 years? Where do you see the company in 5 years? Or pick a date.
I think that we've got another year of system implementation, because it is a little different. It's to do this as a company platform is different than doing it for a project or a piece of a project. Right? The Merck was a pretty good example of it, but it was the kind of project that was very repetitive. And it was kind of, it wasn't giant, and it was a defined thing with defined goals. So it was a good one to try to dive in on. But not everything from that project applies to the bulk of the work we're doing.
Yeah.
So I think we got a lot of systems work still. We're working on, how do we tie some of that into predictability and costing and job costing and accounting, because you really have to do that too at the same time.
Yeah, you do.
How do we integrate these technologies? And then, how do you train the young folks to start really being excited about running things? So I think you got about a year of process design. I think we're finally there where we're, okay, we call it the Binsky production system. What does the Binsky production system actually look like?
Yeah.
Because we can talk all we want about WIP and cycle times, but the reality is you got to have a plan that's transactional in nature to execute on. So I think we're close to that. I think by the end of this year, we'll have that pretty good. And then I think it's just training people and bringing them in. And, we're doing some exciting stuff. We have an internship this summer completely focused on production. And our idea is to, get 5 or 6 folks, get them on projects, let them learning, and hopefully they'll be excited about this, and then you'll be able to, hire them and bring them on, and our whole onboarding really is going to be focused on production. So any person we hire is going to go through this idea of production first. And we got this next gen builder thing we're working on, where everybody we hire, instead of putting them on a job as a project engineer or putting them estimating, they're going to go into the production management department. They're going to learn from the ground up, and they're going to take classes. And I think, after that, then they can go do the other things. It applies. They can go, if they like estimating better, if they like being a project manager, great. If they want to go to the fab shop or they want to stay in production manager, great. But I think the foundation of the whole program still needs to be the work.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, there's so many instances on this journey. When you sit there in a meeting and you're talking to your foreman, and you see a project engineer from the owner or from the construction manager, ask him all these questions, and he looks at me, he's like, I'll tell you what, you want to get the job done? How if you just take this hammer and help me build this thing, because this is crazy. Like what the heck? How about we just build the damn thing?
Yeah.
Right. You hear that stuff and it just resonates over and over. There's my foreman. One of the great things they say is, the things I'd rather be looking at it than for it. Right. Well, what is that? That's whip laying all over the place.
Yeah.
And I say to him, I said, yeah, but there's one thing worse than that. It's looking at it and for it, because that's what you guys do.
That's exactly right. It's all piled up there somewhere.
Yeah, you can't find it. So that's exciting. But it's just every minute of every day thinking a little differently, and transforming a business it's really difficult.
So how are your foremen adapting to this? So you find it an easier adaptation there with the foreman?
Well, I have an advantage that we're union trade, so we hire union pipers and plumbers. And the leadership is very loyal, typically, to the owners of the business. So I have a lot of influence, being so actively engaged. I mean, I'm the CEO, right? But I'm in the weeds on this stuff. That's where I want to be. So I think there's a lot of influence over those guys, because if Junior, Bob Jr. wants to do it, we better do it, right? Because he's the guy who signs my paycheck,
right?
And they're very tied to that, and very loyal to that, actually. So that helps a lot. The problem is they don't really want to plan their work and be transparent about it, because
They like a buffer.
they put a buffer. They got a buffer in their pocket all day long, and we train them to be that way.
Well, that's their track record. If you don't have a buffer, you get beat up and you get hurt.
It's the in many ways. Well, my purchasing department's not going to buy the thing.
Right.
They're buffering for us too, for our own inability to deliver.
Yep.
Right, and to support them properly as much as they buffer. So next thing you know, their idea is, let's just beat everything all the time. And that goes completely against the idea of last responsible moment.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's a really difficult thing for them to understand. It's like, I want to make it. It's like, well, I'd rather you don't make it, actually. I'd rather you don't make it and have something be inserted into our continuous improvement, and let's go try to make it a different way by pulling on one of the levers. So I think that's very hard. They don't like the dailies when it comes to what are you going to do tomorrow. And it's really difficult. And I think what we've done a lot of that, and it really shows up more like statusing. Like, what are you going to get done tomorrow? When are you going to be done? Not what are you actually doing tomorrow. Yeah. So we're embarking on a program where we're creating standard process. We install hangers, set spools, weld them together, do some other stuff, right? But that's pretty much what we do. Yeah. It could be a copper spool, it could be a welded spool. So we're actually going to that granularity where we're batching the work by, and we're starting to label every weld, which is, did you get? So what I want to know, what welds are you going to get done tomorrow? Well, I don't know, weld 47, weld 36. I don't want quantities, because quantities lends itself towards the other side of things.
Yeah.
It's like when you start talking about feet, I'm like, we don't install feet, we install spools. Yeah. So we're going to label the spools, we make them, and you're going to tell me what 10 spools you're going to install. So when you do that, that's when it opens up, and what you see is being able to actually drive your rates down. We've even done things like first run studies, which we don't even know what a first run study is for crying out loud as a contractor.
Yeah.
But the Merck job, we had to make some pretty complicated stainless steel piping, and I'm like, let's do some samples, let's do some sample welds, let's time them, and how do we do it better? Well, what if we resequence? Maybe we should cut this first. Maybe we should, and we're just pulling out all these levers, and really that's the amazing part. We were able to, our rates were cutting 50% by just in the shop stuff
50%.
by doing. Yeah.
Wow.
We cut our rates. What we originally thought were, and I think that's the whole industry. It's, yay, we beat the labor, but what does that even mean?
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't, so what? And everybody's all happy they beat the labor, but if you set the bar here and you beat it, but there is no bottom, I think. And I think that's something we've learned is there really is no limit. It's never ending. Continuous improvement is, they call it continuous improvement for a reason. It's not.
Yeah.
So yeah, you can really drive the rates down. And that's exciting. I mean, I think the guys, when they get it, the fabrication guys on the job, they were excited. They started getting it. They wanted to beat their rates. Yeah, and when we're not beating them up.
Yeah.
We're just asking them, and then we're asking how can we do better. So I think once that happens, but the field's a little different. We haven't.
So it takes
cracked
time
that
to
code
build
yet.
some trust with them.
Oh
That
yeah.
bad things aren't going to happen if they don't get what they said they were
I
going to
mean,
do
red
the
X,
next
a
day.
red X to a foreman is
It's bad.
I lose my job.
Yeah, right.
Like that's what people forget. They're people. Like
That's
their
the consequence
livelihoods.
history.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you don't get that well done tomorrow, you're gone.
Yeah.
But no one ever took the time to say, well, how can we beat that, or what's the real problem?
Yeah.
We do look at commitment reliability reports and study that now, and we group things, and we can tell how many times, because they don't have the piece of pipe there, or they don't have the fitting there, how many 50% of this stuff is their own fault, right? Why couldn't you get that finished? So it's just a fascinating journey, all of this, and I think the end, like you said, I think we can build twice as fast.
Yeah.
And I think we're going to have to figure out how to work with owners more and educate them so they understand what this really could look like.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of controversy because the administrative world of construction management, this goes against what their companies are built on. Yeah. And it's not that it's just what it is. I mean, so, how do they become more integrators? I think they really need to be looking at this as a really serious part of their delivery, and then how do they help the contractors with these things? And they can't, they want command and control, but it doesn't really work that way.
No,
You
I
can't
would
do
hope
it.
that at some point we'll have construction managers using PSO over the whole job site, integrating all those production systems together for the benefit of the overall project. I think really good things are going to happen when we get there.
It feels like people are talking more about about production, and whether you believe the curve or not, the curve that shows construction, lagging, 10x behind manufacturing. We definitely lag behind.
No kidding.
The numbers are the numbers, but
Yeah.
and
Well, and it doesn't feel any better either. I mean, it's true.
I think it's harder to build today.
Yeah,
I think it's really hard to build today.
I think you're right.
I think the technology, it just makes bad stuff worse.
Yeah.
Right? Like I always say, and I have a pretty significant technology background. And really, I could have probably been doing that stuff as well. I was actually programming at like 10 years old. So I love technology, and but what we said is, listen, if you can't do it on a piece of paper, then the computer's not going to help you.
No.
It's just going to make it bad faster.
Yeah.
So bad process is bad process. So you fix your process, and then we can throw a little tech at it and make things happen that could never happen before.
Yeah, let's make it easier to do the wrong thing.
That's right.
And
It's
we're really good at that
but,
as an industry. Yeah.
so it's been quite a journey. So I think, like you said, I think adoption, hopefully. And I think that maybe we're not mechanical contractors someday. We're production specialists, and we're helping people kind of change the way they build.
Yeah.
And we're working with owners and trying to figure that out, because we're in a really unique position. I really do feel like we're very much alone as a sub-trade contractor.
Oh, absolutely.
Doing these things.
Yeah.
And I had the opportunity to talk with some of my peers, belong to some contracting associations, and I was in a group of about 15 mechanicals, competitors, but not local competitors.
Yeah.
And really it's a technology thing and so they're innovative minds. So it's a technology committee. We talk about tech and what's going on with it and, how we bring in stuff. And my son and I presented the Merck or this project to them, and they were blown away. They were blown away that we were doing this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping the tools get better. Production engineering as a thing, we don't, architectural BIM, and that doesn't,
No.
It's not built for that. So we actually drew this project using Inventor, which is like SolidWorks. And then we're translating SolidWorks and Inventor. How do we get that back into Revit? And there's a lot of challenges when it comes to the connectivity and how you do these things. But my thing is, if Elon if he can land a rocket on its rear end, right, coming back to Earth, I think we can put some pipe in a little better.
I think
guys.
you're right.
I think we can figure this out. So,
well, this is really exciting, and really appreciate you taking the time to share your experience and your thoughts with us. It's an exciting journey, and we're here to help any way we can.
Yeah, and I do appreciate the support. I really feel very blessed to be in this group of really exceptional individuals, and everyone's so smart and so excited.
It's
So
pretty cool.
And I feel like you have a bunch of cheerleaders. So it's kind of us CEOs. It's kind of tough to find cheerleaders. You're used to getting banged up all day long. But we get a little of that too in this world. But I think everyone's really tugging hard for Binsky. So I do appreciate that. So thank you. Thank you for this opportunity. Once I started learning about this, I was like, I got to figure this out, and I'm going to take a few folks to the PPI class, and we did that in Cal Poly, and really that's when I really got the hook.
So the class resonated with you.
The class was, it was just full of like, holy moly, what the heck, but I'm clueless. It was like, holy, like what am I going to do about this thing? I've just opened up the Pandora's box. I'm a bit of an incessant learner, and once I get hooked on something, this, taking the PPI class, learning that, seeing, following PPI, listening to the stories of just these incredible individuals, and for these massive companies doing these massive projects, and just the exposure to all of that, it just fuels my fire to learn more and grow in this world. So, we're part of our growth program for the new folks is to, you really lean on PPI heavily. And the education's great, them understanding is great, but I think them learning that there's this other group out there of really, really smart people studying these things, and it's quite inspirational. So I think that's a big part of it. How do we inspire everybody else to get as excited as I get in this learning journey? I think one of the big issues with this whole production stuff is you really have to learn the science a little bit. And when you're first exposed to the science, it's, you got James Chu throwing formulas at you, and he's brilliant and he's amazing human. He's the best. But when you start seeing these graphs on WIP and optimizing WIP and the formulas and the Little's Law and all the stuff, basically your head's going to explode. So it's really a learning journey. So I think, and the sooner we get folks in the game not living in the administrative construction world, really focusing on the work, I think they will know no different. They will understand the science. This will be the only way they build. So I think getting the younger folks, who are really new to our industry, it really should be the start of their career is learning how to build.
Creating that foundation right out of the box.
You got to learn how to build. Everyone complains about it in construction. How come no one knows how to build anymore? How come? Everyone complains about CM. People don't know how to build anymore. And because we're not training to build. We're training to do other things, right? The only place you learn to build anymore is really if you go through the trades. And that's a very long time. It takes a long time. And it's very narrow-minded, right? It's about putting pipe in, or it's about this. It's not about how we build. I think it's really important to create, really want to create a next generation of builders, not just at Binsky, but of the world. And how do we do that? And I think, PPI and these universities. And it's a challenge because most of the universities have construction management programs.
Yes.
And that is the place where you're welcome to come. When you go to a mechanical engineering department and talk about this, they're like, we don't need this. Yeah. This is the construction stuff. Right. Or when if you go to maybe an industrial engineering type of curriculum, I think it applies, but they don't want to hear about construction. They want to hear about how does Boeing do it? How do we build on the factory floor? Right. So I think the educational entree into is complex, and I think we got to figure that out. Honestly, I think we have a lot of work to do.
So are more advanced or experienced career folks just hopeless, or is there some hope there too?
I don't say they're hopeless. I think they're more helpless than hopeless. I think they've been.
That's good.
They're. It's very hard to ask people to transform themselves. And I think you can't denounce, I denounce the administrative side often because I want to create the construct of production to promote that. Right. But administration is important still.
You still have to do it.
You still have to do it. You want to try to automate it. You want to take advantage of all the tools we have today with AI, and we need to leverage all that to make it just make it easier, because a lot of it's a lot of it's clerical in nature, but some of it isn't. Some of it's customer service and relationships, and that's still important. I talk very much down on all of that today, but again, I'm trying to use shock therapy to get my folks to start thinking that, guess what?
A shift in mindset.
You're not going to beat the labor on the project unless you do this.
Yeah.
It's
not processing RFIs faster.
It's not processing RFIs faster. So, but it's still important. So you can't go into these project managers who've been doing this their whole life, and they're getting 300 emails and tell them, okay, I want you to drop all that.
Yeah.
And then when I start focusing on production.
Right.
They're like, what? They can't do it.
Right.
And they're getting beat up by the CM every day.
Sure.
Like, well, I don't have this, well, I don't have that. It's a constant hammer. Mm-hmm. So, they are the squeaky wheel. Yeah. We say that internally a lot now. I say, it's the people will go to the squeaky wheel.
Sure they will.
The key is to create the squeaky wheel where we want it. Just like the bottleneck, they say, right? Mm-hmm. Every production system has a bottleneck. Put it where you want. Yeah. We got to create our own internal squeaky wheels so that our folks will pay more attention to that. And we got to give them the tools and the time to do that. So I would say that we need to help. We need to really help everybody on this journey. Because it's very difficult. It's been 2.5 years for me, and I finally feel like I can hang out with you guys on this stuff now. But it's taken 2.5 years of getting yelled at.
Well, if it makes any feeling better, I think it took me longer than 2.5 years. So I'm still learning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it is fascinating, right? You can always do something better.
It is. It's exciting stuff. So if I've just heard about this, and I'm saying, Bob, you're doing some really weird things on this in your work. How do I learn more about this? Where do I go for help?
So,
what would you advise?
So I tell everybody I talk to, I tell them what we're doing, and I get like rolling blank stares and glazing over eyes.
Right.
And I say, I'll tell you what, here's the map. There's a free mapping tool on projectproduction.org. Get on it. Join it. It's free. You can use the tool for free and just start getting a little bit dirty when it comes to learning. And hopefully some things will stick with you. There's a ton of resources there.
Yeah.
It's really the only place I think you can go to get any of this. I would say that the other thing you do is you should read Todd's book. It is just what the construction world is. It's, I live the book every day of my life. The book's written for me, and what we're doing is we're taking just all those theories and trying to create our own intentional Binsky production system off of all that stuff. So, it's entertaining, but you can, the basis is all the same stuff. So I would say those are two places you need to go, and then I think you got to try it, right? And there's a lot of concepts, right? It's this idea of when you ask people to map processes, they map boxes.
Mm-hmm.
They map processes. Do this, do this, do this. Well, that's not actually the way it works.
Mm-hmm.
Once you know that, it drives me crazy to see processes mapped that way. I want to see a queue box and I want to see an inventory stock. Mm-hmm. And if you're not going to know what that means necessarily here unless you're in the manufacturing world.
Right.
Because when you talk to manufacturing folks, they're like, duh, of course you do it that way.
Right.
You guys in construction, we can't figure you out.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think I would say those two pieces of the puzzle, and then you just get a little dirty, try to, it's fun, I map stupid stuff all day long. It's fun, I gotta take a shower in the morning. How do I want to do it? Do I take the shower first, or do I do this first? It's a production system. Everything is, right? So
right.
I look through everything through that lens today. But it's, you just got to get on the train and enjoy the ride. And I think you got to be really comfortable with just not knowing what you don't know yet, because it does build. Yeah. It's not something you don't just read a book. You read his book, you pick up a little thing, then you got to go on a learning journey.
You got to get your hands dirty.
You got to get dirty. You have to, I've learned most of this stuff really by failure.
Mm-hmm.
And, and I would say a lot of when I first got on the journey, I would be asking these questions and I would be getting yelled at, Bob, this isn't the way that works. You don't get it. You don't get it yet. And then all of a sudden a year goes by of getting yelled at about you don't get it. And then all of a sudden you get it. You're like, damn, but I don't think you would have gotten there unless you got yelled at and didn't get it. So it's just, you got to be okay with that. Like that's not easy for everybody.
No. It's
not easy for me, but you really, it really truly is a journey. It really is. And it's a personal journey.
Yeah, it is personal. That's good.
Somewhat self-serving, of course, which everything is.
Sure.
We want more people thinking this way because there are just so few of us thinking this way. So right now it is, you really need people. We really need owners. We really need owners thinking this way.
Yep.
We need owners thinking this way. We need those owners going to the construction managers and challenging them on production management.
Yep.
It was hilarious. I was in one of the meetings, and one of the head guy for the owner, because it's kind of collaborative on this project, they started throwing out the term LRM, or last responsible moment. I don't think they had any idea what the hell it meant. Yeah. But they heard from somewhere. Mm. And I think they heard it because they met with SPS, because they were asking about production management. Mm-hmm. So I think the more we get where people are saying last responsible moment, like what is last responsible moment? It is the last responsible moment, but really it's the elimination of float.
Yeah, I think owners have to stop being okay with the normalized pain. They need to start expecting more and different, but they don't know where to go yet.
Yes. And it's risky for them, right? These companies are very administratively sensitive to risk.
That's where they've been trained as well.
People's jobs depend on these things, right? Yes. So you don't want to be the guy who messes it up. So it's hard. And then you have tons of lawyers and telling them things, and you got accountants, and you have so many other people in the mix at the owner level that I'm sure that they feel alone. They may know all of this, but what are they going to do? Raise their hand? So I think it's truly educating the owners as to what this is. I think the more case studies we do, and I think there got to be owner case studies. I think owners have to come to the game. It would be great to do this with the owner here.
Yeah, right.
Because owners make stuff. They know this. They actually understand the science way better than the construction world. Yeah. And that's how I approach it. I'm like, well, you guys make whatever, this injectable drug. You know production better than I know it.
That's right.
You guys are making it all day long.
That's right.
He's like, yeah, we do. And we don't.
But they don't carry it into the construction side either.
No.
It's a real challenge. I think you're right. When the owners really start driving this, things will change. Yeah. But we got to get their attention, and they got to see different results are possible.
Say what you want. This country is built on shock therapy at some level, so I think we just got to be loud. Yeah. if we're not loud, as much as engineers aren't necessarily loud, I think we need to be loud on this, and we have to create a real following. And
Yep.
and you got to go to all the schools.
Yep.
You got to talk to all of the engineering departments. You got to you got to look at trade organizations like the Mechanical Contract Association. We have no idea what's going on there.
No, they don't. It's true.
And it's a great organization, and I'm happy to be on the board of it. And why aren't we there talking to them?
That's right. We can keep taking
Electrical
it.
contractors.
We have an
mechanical
issue there.
contractors.
We've tried to break in there. We can't get in the door.
Well, you just got.
Maybe you can help us get in the door.
Well, we got to figure out. What's interesting was they talked about us teaching a class at one of the small conferences, and who would be the guy to teach it. So that's something we should figure out.
Absolutely, we'd love to do
I don't.
that.
I mean, I think like who does an hour or a couple hour talk? Is it? We got to find the right person, because I'm not sure who the right person is, whether it's James or whether it's a Roberto. I'm not sure.
Or it could
yet.
be me.
It could be you. Maybe you should go
Yeah.
and talk and be the liaison and talk to the
Sure.
mechanical contractors. I
Love
have
that
the
opportunity.
in. I'm probably gonna. I'll probably be the president of the whole damn thing.
Oh my goodness. Well,
On a
we got to
national
take
level.
advantage of that.
So we
then.
should take advantage of that. But yeah, and electrical, NECA,
Sure.
right? Have you talked to those at all?
We've tried.
So
We
I
just-
know.
We just get this wall.
Well, you have to remember. So
We don't have the contacts. It's a contact business.
well, it's a
you know
money
that.
game. I mean, let's be real. I mean, at the end of the day, it's an organization as a business,
Yeah.
and an organization as a business needs financials to run on. I mean, the dues pay for 20% of the operation, the donations and the conferences that pays for that. So,
Yeah.
and quite frankly, no one knows what the hell you're talking about.
No, they don't.
They just don't. So no, we should. I mean, and I know. This Electri is the innovation piece of NECA,
Yeah.
and I know the guy who runs.
Oh my gosh. We
I
got to
know
take
the guy
advantage of
who
that.
runs. This guy Josh Bone is a tremendous friend of mine, and
Yeah.
I've known him for years, and he's been on this tech journey with me. So we should.
Let's collaborate.
We should collaborate on those things. Definitely.
Okay. That'd be fantastic.
But totally.
Good. Excellent. Wow. This ended up someplace I didn't expect.
There you go.
That's fantastic.
If you hang out with me long enough, we'll always end up places you don't expect, good or bad.
Well, thank you for taking
Thank
the
you
time.
so much. I really
Very
do
much
appreciate your
it.
generosity, all of
Absolutely.
you. It really means very much to me.
You bet.
Thank you.